Recently I was at my parents' house, and in my old bedroom I came across a copy of Romeo and Juliet that I purchased aged about 18 in a charity shop, and I started to read it because I haven't been reading a lot lately. So when I'm drawn to something to read, I have to follow that instinct. And it made me a little bit nostalgic because I can remember buying that copy of Romeo and Juliet. I was just wrapping up my English A level and I was getting ready to go to university and do an English degree. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about my relationship to this point with Shakespeare's work, and hopefully you can share some of your stories and we can have a nice talk. So I've been thinking about this for a couple of days and I can't pinpoint my first contact with William Shakespeare. Probably something like an episode of an American TV show that I would have watched when I was very young, and within that TV show they would have staged a Shakespeare production. It would have been something like Saved by the Bell does Romeo and Juliet, in that way that cultural things just kind of are planted within us. And I like that I can't pinpoint when I first heard the name Shakespeare, but it's probably a bit embarrassing to admit that it was Zach from Saved by the Bell. Fast forward to my GCSE year of English literature at school. That was the first time that we had to study Shakespeare, and we studied Macbeth, as most British teenagers do at some point or another. I loved getting to read Macbeth. I loved that I understood it. What we did at the time, I don't think we ever went to see a play version of Macbeth, though we were constantly taught, and I do remember this because I still hold on to this belief, that Shakespeare was never written to be read, it was written to be watched. And so for that reason we were allowed to watch a film version. I can't remember which film version, but I'll have a think about it. Then I went on and I did my A level in English literature and I studied As You Like It, and I studied King Lear over 2 separate years. It was good to listen to an audiobook and hear kind of the highs and lows and the soft and the aggressive and all those lovely things. I loved King Lear. I really liked King Lear, but in a way that I knew I would never read it again. I sort of enjoyed it in the moment and then thought, no, I'm probably never going to read this again. And As You Like It was a weird one. That was my first look at comedy, and I remember being confused quite a lot, and the film version served to confuse me further. And the film version we watched took a different approach. I believe it was set in Japan, so that was really interesting to think about how place and period and production can really change your interpretation as well. So at university I did study Shakespeare. I chose to study Shakespeare in my second year. I took an entire class dedicated to Shakespeare. If you've watched my university reading list video, you'll remember that I had the big Norton Shakespeare volume, which I have now sold, but it contained every play. And we also read quite a lot of the sonnets and studied his poetry, which I really enjoyed. Shakespeare at university was everything you'd imagine it to be. I had an incredible tutor who had dedicated so much of his life to studying Shakespeare and writing about Shakespeare and reading everything and just absorbing it all in a way that I knew I never could. I have strong memories of returning to Macbeth, reading some of the Henry plays, and just being absolutely overwhelmed with information, and knowing that the amount of books in the university library relating to Shakespeare was endless, was in my head infinite. But I did okay, and I kind of left Shakespeare there and didn't take him into my final year, but I did enjoy having that Norton anthology, and whilst I owned it I also read a couple of the plays just because I had them, including A Midsummer Night's Dream. I want to talk about A Midsummer Night's Dream because this year is the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. Wow. And there's all sorts of cool things going on to commemorate that, but the one I want to talk about is called MixThePlay. It's a really cool internet platform created by the British Council and the Old Vic Theatre, and I'm going to talk you through it but also show it to you because I think that makes more sense. It revolves around the famous Titania and Bottom scene from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and basically you get to be a director. It's aimed at young people and you get to choose an actor, an actress to play Titania. You get to choose how she reads the lines that she's going to say. You have a few options for production design. So you have 1960s, Elizabethan and modern, and then you can go on and choose costume design in terms of whether you want the bottom to have like a full donkey head or just donkey ears. Fun. And then you get to choose the backing music, and it's again 1960s, Elizabethan, modern. And when you do all that, hey presto, you have yourself a scene. If you're someone who studies Shakespeare in an English classroom, you should tell your teacher about this. If you're an English teacher or a drama teacher, oh my goodness, I just think this is the most fun thing, but it's also really helpful. Reasons I love it is aimed at young people, and it shows Shakespeare, it shows this particular play, as something not fixed and formal. Yes, it has a beautiful dialogue of Shakespeare, which you shouldn't shy away from, but it shows all those other elements as completely malleable, and in doing so makes it a lot more accessible. So I chose the 1960s vibe and the 1960s music, and Shakespeare's plays have been adapted into hundreds of incredible and bizarre different formats since we got our hands on it. But I think that often in a classroom environment and to people who are getting to Shakespeare for the first time, it still feels like something totally archaic, totally scary, hard to understand, hard to enjoy, and things like MixThePlay help to break down that fear. So have a play around with it. The link's in the description. It's completely free. You can tweet me what you've created. I will share in the description and on Twitter my little scene because I'm quite pleased with it actually. And yeah, I hope you like this video. I would love to know how you first came into contact with Shakespeare, even if it's something ridiculous like an American TV show from the 80s. And how do you see your relationship with Shakespeare continuing as someone who's maybe not in a classroom environment anymore like myself? I would love to start watching more Shakespeare and appreciating the hard work that people are going to keep him alive even after 400 years. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for watching. Happy summer solstice and all that good stuff. Bye!